I want to thank everyone for coming as well. I almost feel like my dad's here and he's like, oh, go talk to this one and that one, and this is how we met, and you have to know the story. And before I really get in and share about Dad, I have to acknowledge a part, like, it has not sunk in completely. And I keep on speaking about him like he's here, and so, I mean, in my heart, in my mind, he is. And so just forgive me for that. And so to get on to some of the stories I wanted to share, I always think about stories when he was younger, because he would tell me them and he would only say it once. Most of the time, every story was one time, and then he would relate to certain stories, and he would talk about when he was a kid. But like one of my favorite stories, I won't say it completely because I feel like I'm gonna butcher it or I don't remember everything. But he was telling me, like, I think it was the first day of school. He didn't have many friends and he didn't have siblings. And back then, he said everybody had siblings. Everyone had like 5 siblings, or a few at least, and he didn't. And he met this one kid, and he said, "Oh, you're a part of the family now." And that's the only one he's really told me a couple of times, and he's still friends with them today. And a few of them are here, and which is amazing. I wish I had those sort of friends, and but I'm grateful for that. Another one was we had gone trick-or-treating, and I said something about candy, and he had told me, and his stories were so vivid and great. He really painted a picture. How when he went trick-or-treating, he was lucky to like get walnuts and pennies, and he talked about how one day he had gotten an old orange, and he looked so irritated with that. Although later he let me know that with the pennies, back then you could buy a couple candies, so it wasn't so bad. Let's see. And then my sister had mentioned the oil fields, and he talked so much about that, but one thing he'd mentioned, like once he was done and he had taken the bus back, I was thinking, oh, riding a bus that long to Northern California, that's awful. But he's like, oh no, it was fun. I met all these other kids or teenagers or, his age group, and how they had fun, and how there might have been a little alcohol involved too. But it was just the best. And I'm like, a bus ride that long, the best. And, I just didn't get that. But I just loved hearing that he made, the most out of every situation. So I had gone into the service right around 9/11, and he told me when I got back, and this was the only time he didn't really make a lot of sense. He said, "Oh, I had the high school write your name down," and he was going on and on about it because they had a list and I was off of it, and he did not like that. And he wanted them to even put like that. This is a girl. Elizabeth Irwin is a girl that joined. I almost wanted to be like, oh yeah, don't confuse me with that Elizabeth on the football team. I didn't though. I knew better when to talk back or joke around. That was not the time. Let's see. When I started writing everything, it's kind of like there's so much to them, and I could write a book. I feel like I've never written so much in my life. I do have to say my dad never met a stranger, and I always looked at that with awe and maybe a little bit of envy, because it was so amazing to see him and how he would just talk to people in line in grocery stores, or random people in the streets, people that weren't really there, or people higher in society, and he'd have them cracking up, and it was just, I thought it was always so amazing. And then I think there was a time where he didn't really get along with anyone. I was like, oh, maybe this can happen to him, because it happens to me all the time. And then it turned, of course, and they were like best buds right away. I did tell him, like, I wish I had his genes in that way. He was so good. And then, of course, he made a joke about denim. So that's just how he was. He knew. And so I would talk to my dad all the time. I was lucky to always be able to chat with him. And I remember, especially when I first got in the medical field, there was something that happened with a patient and I was freaking out, and he told me, like, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and then I was still being a bit negative, and he told me, you can focus on this. You can. I don't know what it's going to do for you, but you can do that, and it can really mess with you, but I let things go. And I tried so hard to pick that up, and I think I've become better about it. But now I'm using it as a template, especially now I'm thinking of all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and how I wish I'd been here more and done more. And but I got to do a lot with my dad. I got to talk to him. I got to see him just this last summer, walking into the hospital. He looked so good. I'm like, I talk to other nurses and doctors, and I'm like, oh, his GFR, like this is not good. And they're like, you can live with that. And I go and see him, and he looks amazing. Let's see. He loved his work, and he wanted to go back so badly. And I really, like when he said anything, I just believed him. And I think that's kind of makes it a little bit harder to really sink in that he's gone, because if he said he was going to do something, he did it. And of course with my dad, I cannot talk about him without talking about Star Trek. He loved Star Trek. When I was younger, he'd be like, watch this episode, watch that, and he would do, he really loved some of those phrases. Beam me up was the best one. Beam me up, Scotty. And beam me up and do this, and then if he was working with wood beams, he had to throw it out there, some kind of joke. And then, damn it, Jim, I'm not a doctor. His favorite one was, damn it, Jim, I'm not a doctor. Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not an escalator. And he'd be like, you have to watch this episode. And I can almost picture him at work doing that. I never saw it. Oh, I could see him saying something like, damn it, Tess, I'm an x-ray tech, not a whatever. And I love that as technology has gone on, he got so excited over the tablets and the smartphones, and he's like, I wonder what's going to happen next. He thought the VR was pretty cool, and he's like, oh, so soon we'll have the holodecks and all this stuff. And I loved every time there was an advancement. He just got so excited, especially in the medical field. I think one of the last things we talked about was there was a bladder transplant, and it sounds kind of weird, but we've never had one, a successful one, and he was like, that's pretty cool. Now I'd like to mention his hobbies. He had so many, and that's probably why he was just best buds with everyone. No matter what you talked about, he could relate to something. He loved guns, and he loved Egypt, talking all about it, and all the intricacies and gardening. Oh my God, he loved his tomatoes. He loved them so much. And one day I finally said, why do you have so many? And he's like, well, everyone loves tomatoes. And I don't think everyone loves tomatoes. But he loved them so much. He gave some of his love to everyone. He did have strong opinions, as my sister said, especially about politics. But I love that he never hid them. There were definitely times where I didn't feel like I could speak my mind or say certain things, but he did not care. He wore his Trump gear everywhere. It was like, well, they're going to say something, I was always worried about someone doing something, but I admired that courage. No one could stop him from being himself, exactly who he is. And so I'm going to close with, Dad, when we're ready, please beam us up. Until then, we'll carry your courage, humor, and warmth that you show every day. And whenever we see Star Trek, a story about Egypt, or a tomato plant, we will smile because we'll be thinking of you.